Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Miss Camay Show. I am your host, Miss Camay, and I am broadcasting live today from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. As you guys already know, if you don't know, you should ask somebody because we've been doing this for quite some time. I am coming to you live and on location with the beautiful, amazing, talented, intelligent, sweet, sentimental. There's so many words I can say to describe. Sylvia Feliciano, welcome to the show, young lady.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this.
Of course. So Sylvia and I, for those of you who don't know, we were actually introduced by a mutual friend in Seattle, and we will just give her credit right now, Miss Fancy Frenchwood, my favorite Fancy.
Yes.
She connected us a couple of years ago, and Sylvia has been doing amazing things here in the Las Vegas community. She's actually been a huge, huge blessing to me and my business. She's given me some great direction and connected me with some amazing, amazing entrepreneurial contacts here in Vegas. I thought I was doing big things until I started talking business with you.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah. So you are the founder and owner of Solace Mind. You're an emotional intelligent life coach. You are a veteran. You served in the United States Marine Corps. So definitely want to hear a little bit about that, because I look at you and I see a soldier, but I don't see a soldier, right? You know what I mean by that?
Yeah. Marine.
Yes. So you have an extensive background in corporate performance, compliance, and strategic advisement. And throughout your career, your passion has always been the well-being of your community. Absolutely. So let's go back to the military. Let's go back to the Marines. Give us a little bit of background about you and kind of what you did before you became an entrepreneur.
Well, I wanted to go into the Marine Corps when I was in high school. What challenged me was my peers, my male peers, telling me that I couldn't do it because I was a female. So that just motivated me even more to be able to come back in uniform and show them I did it. So yeah. It was a beautiful experience. I love being a Marine. They have leadership traits that really molded me to be, the resilient, determined, ambitious, entrepreneur that I am. I have two sons that are in the Marine Corps now, and I see those leadership traits in them as well. But yeah, the military was an extensive experience, and I wouldn't have traded it for anything. I went in with a waiver because I was only 17 years old. And so, I did, I was a personal admin, so I was a pencil pusher. But I got to shoot all the fun stuff too, the grenade launchers and, the 50 cals, and I was a Marine.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, baby, I love it.
Tough cookie here. Yeah.
like I said, a soldier, right? A soldier.
A Marine. Soldiers are in the Army.
Okay. You can tell I never served in the Army.
That's okay. Right? It's okay. We have like a sibling rivalry. Yeah, but it's Marine.
Yeah, okay. And so, you talk about leadership, and I'm sure, humanity was huge and big for you in the military as well. They teach those types of qualities. So, kind of talk to us, how did you get into becoming an entrepreneur? I mean, the military lifestyle, being a Marine, it's definitely not an easy job, but they take care of you. Your education, your career. So many people go so far in the branches in the military. And so, why get out of the military? Why leave all of that and kind of, come current, to date where you're at now? How did you make that transition?
So I was only in the Marine Corps for a couple of years, and then I was a stay-at-home mom for a good decade or so. And I was a domestic goddess. I even homeschooled my children, and I ended up, going through a divorce. But 2 years before my divorce, I started going back to school. And so it was by chance. I was 29 and I was actually going to the college to bring my son to take community cooking classes and computer classes. And I saw this older gentleman, he must have been in his 60s, going for a accredited course. He wanted to finish his AA. And so I thought I was too old at 29 to go to school. And here this man is registering at 60 to finish his AA. I said, if he can do it, I can do it too. And that really propelled, because I was always a very studious student and very focused student. And so I knew that it was something that I needed to do, especially since I saw, the throes of the divorce pending. And so I wanted to be able to feel confident that I was going to be, as a single mom, be able to provide for my children. So I really, that is exactly what, started my my journey, if you will, career-wise, because I had just been a stay-at-home mom for the last 10 years. So I graduated after 2 years from Miami-Dade College in Homestead, Florida, top of my class, #1 student. And I was very proud of that because a lot of people didn't have, the encouragement for me because I had been out of school for so long, and I just beat the odds. I really beat the odds. And that just spoke to, the resilience that I still had, from the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps really, embedded that leadership, in me. And so I took that into everything I did. And then I moved to Florida and pursued my bachelor's degree in business administration at Hofstra University. And yeah, it was a journey for sure. And then I started working for a quasi state agency in New York, the Roosevelt Island Corporation, and I became a compliance officer. And during that time, one of the officers of the corporation told me that the island was too small for me and that I had, much more potential than to be stuck on an island. So he had recommended that I apply for this master's program. It was an accelerated master's program, so it was only 14 months. And it was very arduous. So it was 2 summer sessions of 5 to 6 classes each session within 6 weeks. And then a 9-month mentorship in the interim in between those 2 summer sessions. And it was going to culminate a public administration, a master's of public administration. And so I ended up going to Seattle. I selected Seattle, and Seattle selected me, City Light selected me as their fellow. And initially it was supposed to be a 9-month mentorship. And I wanted to get away from New York as much as possible, as far as possible. And Seattle was as far. Yeah, Seattle was as far from New York as possible because I was, raised in Brooklyn, New York. And so me and the kids, my 2 youngest ones moved out there. We loved it immediately. And they created a position for me to come back to because I had to go back to New York to graduate. So I was in Seattle for about 7 years working as a strategic advisor. And then when I became an empty nester in 2018, I had family and friends that would not visit me in Seattle because they had this perception that it's very depressing because it's always raining. And so I never saw anybody. Nobody ever came in the 7 years. I think I've only had, 1 or 2 people come. And so at that point, I started to evaluate, what it was that I wanted to do. I was really stressed in my job. I was in a leadership position. I was dealing with, race and social justice initiative. And there was a lot of stress that was there, a lot of stress. And then I started traveling to Vegas, not for the casinos or for the strip, but for emotional intelligence workshops. And I was so fascinated. I couldn't believe that this was stuff that we had never learned in school, just becoming aware of, your emotions and regulating your emotions. And it was just something that I couldn't believe we didn't have. I had never heard of it, and so I started coming to Vegas more often. And it came to a point where I said, well, I'm an empty nester now. I'm moving to Vegas because I knew everybody, all my friends and family from the East Coast would come to Vegas. So I said, I have 2 children in California. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump there. And I don't want to live in California. So
Yeah.
Vegas is prime. Vegas is the best place to come because, you know, everyone comes here for the strip.
Yes.
So they're not
Yes.
necessarily come to see me, but I can see them for 5 minutes and then, you know, they can be on their way.
Right,
So,
right.
in the 6 months I was here, I saw more people than in the 7 years I lived in Seattle.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you know, it just spoke to, you know, me making the right decision. But then, when I was in Seattle before I moved to Vegas, because I was dealing with the stress, I had gone through 2 emergency surgeries because of stress. It was built up in my core. So I had grown hernias in my digestive system. And so the last surgeon had told me, you know, this is stress induced. You need to find some stress management. And I never cared, you know, I never had practiced self-care. Like, we're conditioned in the Black and brown communities not to even think about self-care because it's more selfish. You know, we're conditioned to be this self-sacrificing entity, right? Especially as a mom. And so you tend to lose yourself. And that's what happened to me a couple of times throughout my time as being a stay-at-home mom. And now in this position in a leadership role where I'm the only woman of color, you know, there were a lot of challenges there, especially because I was stirring the pot and engaged in eliminating.
Of course you were.
Well, listen, you know, when I see injustice, I don't have a problem. I call it out unapologetically.
Yes.
And so in Seattle, of all places, you bring a girl from Brooklyn who's showing up unapologetically to fight, you know, racism and social injustice. And, you know, it tends to be isolating. And I found a lot of isolation there. And so the money was great. I was making 6 figures, but it no longer became my driving force, my purpose. You know, as you mentioned, my commitment has always been the well-being of the community. And so I started seeking out stress management and I sought out yoga. I started doing yoga. And then I had 2 car accidents, one after another, month to month. And I wasn't able to really practice the yoga because, you know, I was badly hurt. But then, but at the yoga studio, I still wanted to go because I felt so good. I felt an immediate change. There were so many benefits to it. And again, like the emotional intelligence, here's another healing modality that I've never been exposed to. There's a perception of who yoga and meditation is for, and it's not for the Black and brown communities. So, well, that's the perception anyway, right? And so,
yes, correct.
So I started doing the meditation. I started doing yoga nidra. I started doing the yin. And so I really loved it. I loved it so much that I wanted to bring it to the community. I wanted to teach it. I saw an informational workshop and I sat down with who's my yoga mentor now. And she says, you're prior military, you would be amazing at not only yoga nidra, but Iris yoga nidra. And so that's a modern version of the ancient practice of yoga nidra. And so I learned and I became trained in teaching both. And I started, you know, bringing it to the community, and what a difference immediately. You know, people wanted me to have sessions with them. They, you know, some of the testimonies were that in the 30 minutes I was providing that meditation, it was more sleep than they had received, you know, in a month's time. And so I just found that to be my driving force. I found that to be what I wanted to have, that direct impact and change people's lives. That's what I was looking for. So I decided that I wanted to push the envelope more and become more, you know, certified in more healing modalities. So I ended up going to India for my 500-hour yoga training program. I lived there for 2 months, met amazing people from 13 different countries. There were 21 of us in the first month, and then 11 of us in the second month. It was an amazing experience, and I almost didn't come back. I wanted to stay. I really wanted to stay because you're really connected with nature. Like, you've got monkeys running around and dogs and cows, and their way of life, you know, it's just so different. It's just
very, very different from from our society. You know, I have to say, it was truly a pleasure to follow your journey in India. You know, you were so transparent in sharing, you know, what you were learning, the people that you were meeting, and you know, just sharing the culture. And I would like to say, in our current climate right now, you know, you're talking about you know, racial equality. You know, we've seen so many injustices that have happened recently, tragically. And you know, learning about other cultures, meeting people from different nationalities, different origins from around the world, is an opportunity for us to learn. It's an opportunity for us to share our culture, to share our religious beliefs. You know, we can all be religious people. We all have different, you know, I guess, versions of faith that we believe and practice. But to, you know, to go to another country, to go to India, you know, you're going there as a student, correct? Yes. So you're going there to learn and practice and become certified in the type of yoga that you provide in your services. But while you're there, and while you were there, I mean, you can't tell me you didn't learn about their culture. You can't tell me that you didn't learn about those people. You can't tell me that you didn't learn about, you know, their religious beliefs or their religious practices. And vice versa, them learning about you. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and your nationality and where you came from and your life experiences. Right. This is about humanity. We are all in this together. And you know, society programs us to, you know, to be with this group or that group, or to stay over here, to classify over here, or to recognize this, to recognize that. And we're really getting away, further and further away every day from humanity. We are all human beings. We are women, we are men, younger versions of that, older versions of that. But at the end of the day, we are all human beings. So how did you know, you were already in business here. I want to back up a little bit. You moved here to Vegas. You established your business here. You've been teaching yoga. And then I mean, I remember talking to you. We had coffee one day and you were like, this is it. I'm going to India. Like, I'm just doing it. And it was unbelievable to me. And then, you know, to watch your journey on Facebook and follow you those, you know, couple of months that you were gone and everything that you were sharing in the videos. So how do you go to a different country, you know, to increase your credibility, to increase your business practice? How did you get to that decision? Because as you and I both know, there are many people who are, you know, dreaming entrepreneurs and have no idea how to get started. They just don't even know where to begin, but they know they don't want to go to that 6-figure, 50, 60-hour a week corporate job and punch in and punch out. So take us back to that. You know, you're already in your business. You've moved here to Vegas. You've been established. You've made a great connection with the Salt Room and the lovely lady who owns the Salt Room.
Ava.
What's her name?
Ava.
Ava. Yes, Ava. You know, doing amazing things with her and her establishment there. So why did you decide to go to a completely different country, you know, limited resources, to, you know, to yourself, and make that decision to make that investment in you? You know, why and what for? Why did you do that?
I did it because I did want to immerse myself in the culture, because I thought it very important to have the traditional history, philosophy, culture, knowledge, wisdom from where, you know, it began. We also know that yoga also comes from Africa, from ancient Egypt too. So I don't want to dismiss that either. Yes. But I wanted to, I saw the importance, knowing about race and social justice and appropriation, you know, of culture. I wanted to get it from the Indian culture. I wanted to understand it from that perspective. I didn't want the westernized version of it. I wanted the spirituality of it. And we tend to really capitalize or create a capitalistic version of cultural things. right, that we take from different countries. And so I didn't want that watered down, and not even watered down version, but more secular version, I would say.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
because I knew that I was going to also be trained, and I had already been trained on the secular meditation. All right. And it's really about being able to meet everyone everywhere, really. So
yeah.
I could have the Eastern awareness and knowledge, and then the Western. And then I can meet someone where they are, whether they're in the spirituality or they just want, the mindfulness and the meditation and without the spirituality. It's very important that we do meet people where they are. So it was important for me to have a rounded, well-rounded knowledge and training of, the yoga, the spirituality, the meditation, not just the westernized culture version of it. I really wanted the spiritual grounding.
Yeah, very, very important. I love that. I love that. Because in your business, in your line of work, the spirituality, the meditation, the background, the history, how it has evolved, how it has developed, is essential, would you say, to your practice, and essential to your coaching sessions you have with your clients? That knowledge, that wisdom, that information that you have. It's essential, would you say?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then when I did, that was my frame of thought. As I grew into and became more trained, it became more about spirituality, my own spirituality, but also knowing, as a trauma survivor myself, knowing that cultural things can be a trigger to some people, right? Especially people in the military, depending on which wars they fight. And so the more and more I trained in trauma awareness and trauma sensitivity, the more I appreciated the knowledge and the training I received here in the Western states, because now I can serve a demographic and a population with the same benefits and resources I'm providing them, but without the spirituality, without, the cultural part of it, which may trigger, certain emotions because of war. And so it was very important for me to have that trauma awareness and be okay with that. Because initially I was like, oh, it's appropriation, but it's not. It's more understanding that there's so many people we can help when we understand where people are.
Yes.
And so I grew into accepting and no longer judging the process and my journey itself, because there was a lot of judgment there, and I had to grow from that as well and know that I get to serve anybody and everyone, depending on where they are in life. And so I was okay with that.
Right. Yeah. So you talk about, our veterans, our men and women who served in the armed forces, who are Marines and soldiers, right? I got that right?
Oh, we got airmen and airwomen and Coast Guards. Yeah.
Okay. I'll do my homework. I'm a military brat. You would think I know that, but
that's okay. You can just say military personnel.
I came from the Army, so hence soldier,
that's
right?
That's fine.
And you talk about, what our veterans have gone through, okay? And I want to kind of, I guess, broaden the term and label it PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes.
And so, and I'm sure that this is something that you will definitely be able to elaborate on, because you don't have to be a Marine or be in the Army or be an airman to go through a life experience that is traumatic,
right? That
causes you trauma. And from that moment forward, anything could potentially trigger that trauma, being post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. So when we're talking about you and your, community commitment to wellness and your trauma-sensitive approach that you practice, you could take someone like yourself who has been a Marine, who could potentially, and I don't know this for sure, but who could potentially experience some PTSD from trauma, past trauma in your life. I have gone through life, and certainly I was not a member of the armed forces, but I have experienced trauma.
Right.
And I have gone, survived those episodes of trauma or those incidences of trauma, and I've gone through and moved forward in life, but have had triggers, hence the post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. When I was first diagnosed with it, I didn't honestly really understand it, to be honest,
Right.
because I've always had this survival mentality, like, okay, this happened in life. Okay, you're getting through it. Okay, you got through it. Okay, now we're moving on.
Right.
It's not that clean and simple. It doesn't happen that seamlessly, right? So talk to me about that, because we have different levels of trauma, and again, not to dismiss or discount anybody's experiences. But for example, you experiencing trauma through war. I've experienced trauma through being bullied in the workplace. And, my trauma almost cost me my life. Potentially your trauma or somebody else's, trauma potentially have cost them their life as well. So the details are kind of convoluted in the details and kind of the circumstances. But what we're really talking about is humanity, human beings, people who have gone through trauma in their life and are looking for healing that is not in a little white pill that we can take, right? Because
trauma doesn't look like everything. Like, trauma doesn't look the same in everyone. And let me just make a clarification. I did not go to war. I did not go to war. I did experience military sexual trauma, MST, but I didn't go to war. But prior to that, to your point, we experience a good portion of our trauma in our childhood. A lot of the things that we experience in life that, sort of make us stuck in life, or if we're experiencing depression or we're triggered by something, it usually stems from childhood trauma. And we're talking about trauma in the womb. Experiencing trauma in the womb when our moms are experiencing trauma, that transfers to us, right? And so we have that traumatic memory, that muscle memory built in. And so when we're not healed, when we are not identifying or acknowledging or, addressing the trauma, they become limiting stories that we create subconsciously and even unconsciously. And so when we get older and we experience even more trauma, bad relationships, bullying in the workplace, we have these, layers, layer upon layer, and we're not dealing with it, right? And then it, trauma becomes, that chronic stress in the body, literally in the body. And so, when we're not dealing with the stress, when we're not, intentionally managing and healing from the trauma, even from our inner child, from our childhood, it shows up in many different ways. It shows up in chronic illness, cancer. It shows up in depression. It shows up in anxiety, panic attacks. And we're not conscious to why it's there. And it's because we've been in this survival mode, just get it done, and we're trailblazing and just, moving in trauma, right? And we've not been taught how to be mindful. We've not been taught about emotional intelligence, so we have no emotional intelligence. So we're reacting instead of responding. We don't have self-control of our emotions. And so there's so many people who are stuck in the pain points of their struggle, whether it's abandonment, neglect, sexual trauma, domestic violence, so many things that we experience throughout the span of our life. Then they wonder why they're stuck in life, why they're not feeling fulfilled, why they feel lost, why they're not happy in their job, right? And so it all stems from the lack of self-love. It all stems from not knowing what their self is, their authentic self, from their conditioned self. We have a lot of limiting stories that we move in, whether it's we're not good enough, or we're not lovable, or just so many thoughts that we have about ourselves. And when we're not mindful, or emotionally intelligent about that, when we're not self-aware that those limiting beliefs are showing up in how we are with personal relationships, especially loved ones, you
Yeah.
know, we tend to self-sabotage. And
Yeah.
so it's really becoming self-aware. It's really wanting to transform and grow and heal and be intentional about that. And that's why this has become my passion. Now I do life coaching, and you know, one of my clients, she wants to now take me on her family trips. The kids want me on their family trips, you know, because it's just, I absolutely believe, and I'm also bringing mindfulness now to children, you know, up in North Las Vegas. And it's incredible how attentive and how quickly they catch on to this knowledge and to this
Yeah.
practice. It's
Yeah.
so readily available to them if we allowed it to, you know, we
Sure.
allowed it to come into the schools, if we taught it to the parents. But
Yeah.
we know that it's by design. You know, you keep children
Yeah.
hypervigilant, and I always have to go back to the race and social justice, because while we are all interconnected and it should be about humanity, we know that there are systems in place, right, for certain demographics for, you know, there is a such thing as cradle to prison pipeline. And so
Yes.
when you
Yes.
keep children hypervigilant and you discipline them, you know, they're the perfect, you know, victim for that cradle to prison pipeline, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And
It's
so,
amazing. It's amazing how simple it's structured. It's amazing. It, you know, the structure is extremely, extremely simple, unfortunately.
yes.
And
So my goal is to bring it to the children, you know, make them mindful. They're loving it. My clients' children are loving it. I'm doing
yeah.
sound healing with the singing bowls, and that is so perfect for children with ADD and, you know, attention deficit disorder, but also Asperger's, you know, I mean, and autism. There's so many healing modalities that we're just, especially in the Black and brown communities, that we're not, it's not accessible. And so
Right.
my goal really is to make it accessible to everyone everywhere, but to really bring it to the children, because they should be having classes and sessions on mindfulness and meditation and yoga, because they enjoy the yoga too.
Yes. Well, and they're our future. You know, we've got to make an investment in them, and we've
Absolutely.
got to start. Yeah, we've got to start today. We can no longer allow, you know, them to fall into the whatever crack, you know, they end up in. It is to them for sure.
And addressing their limiting beliefs now at an early age, where they're mindful and they're self-aware, and they're still protected from the world where they have that love, because as children we naturally love, right? We're not, before we're tarnished, before we're tainted by the world, we have this love for everything and everyone, right? And so getting mindfulness and meditation to children at an early age really helps bring that peace and connectedness, you know, all around the world, because you're not bringing that hatred. You're not teaching them the hatred, you know, you're not teaching, because it all starts at home, right? Racism, discrimination, biases, bigotry, prejudice, that all starts in the home. And so when you can, you know, make aware and expose children to mindfulness and to meditation, it really helps. It really, really helps with that connection with the world.
Sure. Well, it's giving them something to focus on. You know, they're learning, they're being educated, and you know, kids love that. They need it. They definitely need it. It's not just, you know, enough in our public school system, even our private school system. You know, you talk about upper limiting behaviors. And that's something that I learned as a grown adult woman. I'm like, what do you mean upper limiting behaviors? What is that? You know, I couldn't understand it, you know, upper limiting behavior. And when you're having that conversation and you're being educated about that and what it is, you are able as an individual, because your age is irrelevant.
Right.
When you have that awareness, and when you can say to yourself, okay, Camay, this is an upper limiting behavior. I'm not getting to the next level in my best self. And so I need to make an adjustment. Versus somebody saying that to me and having no idea, absolutely no idea at all, you know, what that means. So, great point there. We don't have a lot of time left, and I want to, you know, wrap up. I definitely want people to know how they can connect you. I know that You just recently have been working on your YouTube channel and putting content up there. So we definitely want people to head on over to YouTube and search for your YouTube channel. It is Solace Mind, correct, on YouTube?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
Solace
So
Mind.
for those of you watching, you can head on over to YouTube and search for the Solace Mind. We will post a link here in the comments on this video that'll take you straight to her channel where you can subscribe. Can you tell us a little bit in closing? We've got about 5 minutes left. You do group sessions over at the Salt Therapy, or the Salt Room, excuse me. Talk to us about your schedule over there, where people can connect with you and find you there at the Salt Room. And then where people can find you on social media really quickly.
Sure. So yes, I'm at the Salt Room every first and third Friday in the Summerlin location, and then every first and third Saturday in the Henderson location. With the exception of the holiday, the 4th of July holiday, just because it's a holiday and I'll be spending time with my children. But other than that, I have private sessions, and I can do group sessions privately as well. My website, I'm revamping it because I'm doing the life coaching now. So I do have a 3-month coaching program. So I also offer the gentle yoga hourly or by 90 minutes. So gentle yoga, Reiki healing, sound healing with the singing bowls, and the meditation. And then end of summer, I'll also be providing and practicing hypnotherapy.
Oh, that's so
I'm
exciting.
excited about that. Yes, I'm really excited about that. So I'm just making available these differing healing modalities that I have been practicing and finding such a huge benefit and a resource, and just wanting to provide that to everyone else.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing for the local community here in Las Vegas. You know, for those of you that know me, who have watched the show over the last several months, you know, we talk about the tourism here in Vegas, and that it is definitely a city that's focused on tourism, but we do have a local community here. It is huge. And we do have a local community of African American and Hispanic American individuals that actually work in the tourism that is in this city. For those of you who come to Vegas and you just see the Strip, please also know that there are amazing, fabulous women of color like Sylvia, like myself, that are truly, truly compassionate and have a lot of empathy for the local community here in Vegas. There's a lot of opportunity here within the community. There's a lot of business that goes on here in this community. You know, a lot of opportunity for that entrepreneurial spirit in business here in the community. Sylvia, in closing, we've talked about, you know, the corporate jobs, you know, you being in the military, you know, having these positions where we're working for someone else, where we're punching that clock, we're clocking in. We could be making great money, right? 6 figures, it's not always worth it. I was just thinking.
Not all money is good money.
Yes. Yeah, I was just thinking this morning, you know, without my family, without my husband, without my friends, I could have all the money in the world and I would be miserable. I wouldn't be happy at all. I wouldn't be happy.
Right.
So in closing, what would you say to our audience members who are listening to you, who have, you know, you've sparked an interest in them? They may be interested in yoga. They may be interested in you know, meditation. You know, they've heard something in your interview today that really has them just inspired to really, you know, go and do their own thing. Talk about the transition from corporate to the entrepreneurial lifestyle. What would you say to somebody who is really considering, but they're just afraid to jump?
I would tell them to seek out, you know, a plan, to just do it. You know, whether they need to take their time and work 2 jobs, work, you know, their 9 to 5, so it can fund their, you know, their entrepreneurship. But I would tell them to do it because you have the flexibility to pursue, you know, your passion and your purpose, because it's not just about passion. We can be passionate about so many different things, but are we serving in our purpose, right? And that's what's fulfilling us, right? Our purpose. Yeah. And so, it's really about understanding what your purpose is first and foremost, and knowing that you don't have to be stuck in a 9 to 5 where you're unhappy. You can do it. You know,
Yeah.
I was a single mom going to school full time and raising children, and I ended up homeless, and I still went to school. I still kept a 4.0. Nothing was going to stop me. And so you just have to know that you have it within you to do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
And just make a plan. Just talk with someone who's done it. Seek out advice. There are so many different free resources out there that helped me. And was the journey easy? No, by no means was it easy. It wasn't easy at all. But I'm at a point right now where I'm bringing healing to so many different people, especially children. And my journey has been all worth it. Because I can relate to everyone now. I've been homeless. I was in the military. I'm a woman of color. You know, there's so many things that are so relatable. And so I would just say, do it. If you know what your purpose is and you're passionate about it, work towards it and be free. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Amen to that. Amen to that. Amen to that.
For sure.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing your platform with me, and giving me an opportunity, to highlight you and what you're doing. There you have it, folks. You've heard it directly from Sylvia herself. I will also share with you guys, this isn't business consulting that she does, but she was very influential and very helpful with me and my business here in Las Vegas. So if you are not connected with her, please connect with her. Like I said, jump on over to her YouTube channel, subscribe to her channel. You can
find
her
me on Facebook too and Instagram.
Yeah. Facebook, Instagram, and then you're also on LinkedIn, correct?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn. My website will be up next week, so it'll have all of the different healing modalities there, the life coaching program, which I'm so excited for. I want people to sign up for that because it has been an amazing journey so far with my clients. Amazing journey.
Yes. Yeah. We will make sure to post all of her links down in the comments on this video, you guys. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to the Miss Camay Show. Thank you, Sylvia, for being here today.
So much.
So appreciate you. You're welcome. Blessings to you. I intend to get over to that salt room and attend one of your sessions sooner or later. We'll definitely get over there. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. I am Miss Camay, your host on the Miss Camay Show. We'll see you guys next week, Wednesday, 2 p.m., same time. Same place. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.